We're not dealing with that crap anymore. It's not a necessity to be a leader that way. I'm seeing the change happening through these generations, and now these 20-somethings that I spend a lot of time with in the schools, they get it, and it's gonna be different.
Welcome back. Today we are joined by Dr. John Tuders, a respected voice in business and leadership, known for his ability to turn vision into practical action. With decades of experience guiding teams, developing leaders, and driving organizational change, Dr. Tuders has built a reputation of challenging conventional thinking and inspiring real change. In this conversation, we'll explore some baseball. Let's talk about some Yankees and Savannah Bananas. We're going to talk a lot about trust and how trust factors into so many things within building an amazing culture, an amazing team, organization, and relationships. And you'll also learn a little bit more about his FQ factor. That's right, FQ, not EQ. So tune in so you can learn more about all of those topics and more. Are you ready? Let's do this. Welcome to this week's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast, where I, Angela Gill-Nelms, sit down with industry experts for candid conversations about the challenges and joys of leadership. Be sure to share this episode with someone you know who could use leadership inspiration today. Now let's dive in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. I am very excited to have a friend of Christy's here. She recommended John and said, hey, and he is a badass leader. And so, John, why don't you kick us off? Tell us your story. For those who do not know you, tell us what's behind that professional title of yours.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. This is, I've been looking forward to this, so thank you. And thank you for Christy for the introduction. Yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up just a kid in Queens, grew up in New York, and grew up in a typical Italian neighborhood in New York. Moved to North Carolina and decided that when I was going to go to college, which was the first in the family to go to college, that was a new ground to be broken.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was going to go for business. Why? I had no idea. My family is incredible blue collar workers that crushed it up in New York. And for me, it didn't fit. So for me, it was business. I thought about law, all these different things. Ultimately went to school, came out and started working with the New York Yankees, right? That was a baseball passion of mine. So working for them was kind of beautiful and really just dug into business. And for me, a lot of the journey that I've had has been weird. It's always been one of those, I didn't plan any of it. I didn't think what I would be doing now, I would have been doing. There was not an aspirational as a child to be this, and I hit it or anything like that. I'm just going where I see the purpose is and where it takes me, and it's been an incredible ride. And I've been able to meet thousands of people and secure relationships with tons of them. And so, yeah, that's the gist of how it all came to be. There's no rhyme or reason, but there's a lot of cool stuff I'm doing right now, and I couldn't be any happier.
Well, you sound like you've been an expert at embracing some pivots in your life. So I want to hear a little bit about that just based on your story. But going from Queens, where did you go to in North Carolina, and how did you pick that as your place, especially being the first in your family to go to college? I mean, that was a huge decision. How did you pick that?
Yeah, well, it was my father's decision. Up in Queens, I started working when I was 11 years old, and there was a gentleman who brought me on at 11 at a outdoor flea market. It was one of the biggest flea markets in Queens, and I got a job there. Mainly because my grandmother was walking around with me and she said, you need to get a job. I'm 11. I guess I needed to get a job. And she introduced me to this guy. His name was Aaron Barr. And for 3 years, he taught me a ton. Like, he taught me about relationships, about trust, about money, about business, I sold clothes. I sold, jersey sweats and t-shirts. I sold clothes, but he taught me everything. And so it was an amazing experience. And then going into my end of high school, my father was working with the airlines up there, and he was getting transferred down to Greensboro, North Carolina. And so he said, "We're moving to North Carolina." And it was a culture shock. We moved
Yeah.
here, my brother, my two sisters, mom and dad, and nobody understood what I was saying. My accent was nobody understood what I was saying, and wound up going to school down here. I just decided I'm going to go to school down here, and went to East Carolina University and loved every minute of it. Met lifelong friends, and realized right there, it's like this is the path. I guess I didn't even think about college before then, but yeah, it's been amazing. I wasn't what I would consider a marquee student, and then all of a sudden one day I've got my doctoral degree. So undergraduate friends cannot believe that that's the case, but so be it.
So then how did you pick going and working and what was your first job at the Yankees, right? Because I can imagine maybe growing up in New York, you absolutely would not have had maybe on your bucket list that you would have that type of role at the Yankees. But if you told your young kid about this, they would say, "Oh yeah, I'm badass. Like I'm going to be badass," because how cool is that?
No, it's the best. And I grew up a Yankees fan. My grandfather was a big Yankees fan, listening to the radio of the Yankees every night on the stoop. My dad was a Mets fan. He wasn't too thrilled with that. But for me, I had a couple of mutual friends, friends of the family, that were able to get me an internship. And with that internship, the way baseball works, especially specifically the Yankees, they have three minor league teams that they had ownership of, and three that were owned by outside individuals. And one of the ones in Greensboro was owned by an outside company, and I was able to get an internship. It was their single A team for minor league baseball, and I was able to get an internship with them. Did well, built some great relationships, and they offered me a full-time job as director of operations. So I was working with the minor leagues, working with like stadium contracts, all of that stuff. And it was a dream come true for me. I had no idea exactly where it would go, but I did it for 3.5 years. And at the time I was engaged to my now wife. And she asked me the question, kind of, are we done playing in the sandbox? Like, is this going to be it, or are we? And so I realized it wasn't going to be a lifelong thing, but an incredible experience, to say the least.
Okay, so I'm curious about this. One of the things that I've learned, I serve on the board to the president at Georgia Tech. And during my time on that board, I've learned so much about the economics of college sports and athletics that now I look back and he's going to kill me for saying this. But we were just recently, like the rights to media rights, right? And so he was just recently saying at a board meeting, he said, I know you guys hate when we go to 7 overtimes with UGA, but all I can think of is cha-ching, cha-ching. And I was like, that is my favorite thing. And really understanding the business side
Yeah,
of
yeah,
athletics and how important it is to understand. I'm really grateful now. We're really starting to figure this out at Georgia Tech and the amazing athletic directors that have come in that have educated us because it helps us be the best university that we can. So tell me, what was most surprising to you when you went into that type
yeah.
of role?
Well, it's funny you brought up a question like that with the business of it. There's so much behind it. There's so much blood, sweat, and tears. There's so much of the finance and the business. I remember distinctly getting a call from my brother. My brother's 2 years older than me, big Yankees fan. And he called me one night, and it was late. It was like midnight. And he's like, "How'd you guys do tonight?" And my answer was, ticket sales were okay at display. I made blah, blah, blah. And I'm going through the business statement of how the day was. He said, "No, no, no, who won?" And I sat there for a second. I'm like, "Steve, I never watched the game." And he was pissed at me. He hung up.
Wow.
He's like,
Wow.
"You're working with, and you're not even watching the game." Like, it became a business. It's a business.
Yeah.
And you start realizing there's a lot that goes on behind it and how much work goes into it. And I knew right there, it was such a passion for me. Baseball is a massive passion for me. I played in high school, wasn't good enough to play in college, really. So for me, my two young boys, they've been playing baseball. They've played some college ball. So it's a passion for me. And I realized I'm like, I have to get out of it if I'm going to protect the passion. And that and the fact of my wife, a little bit of nudging, which was very smart. But those two things, it's a business, and you learn so much about it. You learn so much. There's so many pieces, and I learned a lot of politics too. There's a lot of politics in baseball. We had an opportunity when the Houston Astros were potentially going to move to Northern Virginia. The ownership group that had that particular franchise that I really got to be friends with, they were going to offer us full-time jobs with that team. As soon as the Astros moved, we had jobs with the Major League Ball Club, and it wound up not happening. The Montreal Expos then moved to Northern Virginia under a different unit, become the Nationals, and so on is history. But there's a lot of politics behind baseball, and I'm sure in college sports as well. But it takes away a little bit of the passion for it, which I would rather stay on the screen, this side of the screen and watch the games and stay passionate. So.
Yeah, I agree. And all Georgia Tech alum, I'd rather you just donate more money and us just win games faster.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
So speaking of that, I have to ask this then. Have you been to a Savannah Bananas game?
No, I have not been to a Savannah Bananas game. My wife tried to get tickets a couple of times. The prices were through the roof, so we did not go. But I respect it. I love minor league baseball. I respect the entertainment of it. It reminds me of Harlem Globetrotters for basketball.
Yes.
But there's such talent there. I mentioned my two boys. One of them, my youngest, Vincent, he's a junior in college, plays club baseball at UNC Charlotte. He would be an incredible Savannah Banana. I mean, they got that. He fits the image. So I have not been. I respect it. I love what they've been doing. It's just bringing other fans to the game. So yeah, but maybe one day.
Well, it's on my list too, John. So maybe come down to Atlanta. We'll pay a fortune for some tickets at
Yes.
Field or Park or something. So
Would love it.
It's
Would love
definitely
that.
on my list. Okay, so talking about this a little bit, and I can start to see a little bit of the answer to this question, but maybe I could be wrong, because I can imagine you as an 11-year-old selling these, and how much courage, because when you go to an arts and crafts festival, for example, you see some amazing artists and they're tucked away in the back. There's not that. So it takes this level of engagement and courage and I don't know what to be able to do that. So can you talk first off, were you ever a shy child and did this transform you? Or was this something that you really realized, wait, I'm really good at relationships and I understand that relationships are really important and I'm going to grow that skill?
Yeah, those are awesome questions. I was never shy as a child. I relationships and making a quick bond and building rapport, I've always been very good at. Watching my father do it for years, my mom as well. So never an issue. And that job really did a lot of how do you build rapport and relationships and understand what people are looking for. I was 11. Like I'm meeting these people, and Aaron, who was him and his wife owned it. He would put me right out there. It's like, go talk to them, go talk to them. What were they looking for? What was the problem they had? And he would start giving me these like strategic questions. Like, what do you do if? And it was just an interesting dialogue he and I had. And I realized quickly, I'm like, people buy from people they like.
Yes.
And realize, if I can help someone as they're looking, or if I can read, he taught me how to read faces too. And I really started studying that for a long time. And I still do. I read expressions. And he would sit there and say, when people are coming by, their face is going to let you know if they're interested in what you have in front of you, and just watch it. And if you see it, ask them a question. And so at 11, I was doing that. 11, 12, 13, I was doing it in the winter. I was doing it in the summer. I mean, he paid me in cash. So that was beautiful. I thought I was loaded. And yeah, I would sit there with wads of money and at a young age, but yeah, there was a ton I learned from that. The relationship building, the quick building of rapport, making a connection, not being nervous to talk to anyone. Those things to me probably did more for my career than any other trait that I would have.
Yeah, I was envisioning that when you were talking about it, and I thought this is the perfect thing. You're basically starting off at 11 as an entrepreneur, And I will
Yeah.
tell you, I love the comment you have about reading faces. So a lot of the teams in my job at Biolocity, when I'm working with these entrepreneurs and I'm having them practice their pitch practice, and I'm telling them, look, you need somebody on your team who's there and is watching the faces of the VCs. You can tell when they start to glaze over. You can tell from their body language, but it is an art
It
to
is an art.
learn how to do that. And I now that you and I are talking about it, I really don't think that we do a good enough job educating people how to do that.
Correct. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, one of the classes I teach right now at UNC Charlotte, I've taught it for about 4 years, is executive communication. And a lot of the stuff I talk in there is finding your own executive voice. But the biggest part I'm trying to make sure everybody understands is that's only part of it. Reading nonverbals, reading body cues, reading facial expressions. The idea that we now have Zoom and these kind of screens where I had to live in the business world where if you weren't in person, you had 40 people on a conference call, and now I'm listening for tone. And so now the ability to be able to see again, I don't think, I know we don't train enough of that. I know we don't talk about it as important as it is, the ability to stay out of your own head and make sure that the communication you're delivering is received, because it doesn't matter what you're saying. If it's not received well, it doesn't matter. And so watching the face of confusion, frustration, aggravation, excited, happiness, down, like all of those different things really help you audible while you're communicating, or where you're seeing something that you've got to go back. It looks confusing to someone, so you've got to go back a little bit, or demonstrating that how you listen by like being intent. So yeah, I agree. I don't think it's enough. I do wish there were more courses to do that. We do a lot of human development at Cabin in the company that I started a year and a half ago. We do it every month. This past month, we did a whole focus on reading faces when there's conflict, right? That
Ooh.
nobody learns
I
that, right? But it's important.
I love. Okay, we're gonna put a pin in that. So listeners, keep listening. We're gonna talk about that later in the episode because I love conflict and I love having these conversations about it, which to some people seems weird when someone says they
Oh,
love
it's
conflict,
important.
but
It's important.
I do exactly. So one of the things that I was thinking about as far as the facial expressions in that piece, I remember when COVID happened. And I was a professor for a PhD class at Georgia Tech, and about a couple of weeks into the semester, I suddenly said, okay, I need everyone to turn on their cameras because
Yes.
I do not care. I refuse. I think I had a little PTSD right now thinking about going back to those conference
Yes.
calls
Me
that were
too.
only audio, right?
Me too.
Because as a professor, when you're trying to determine, okay, are they shaking their heads? Are they
Right.
engaged? Are they
Right.
clearly distracted and doing something else? Is so important. And I think that's the piece when if you have a meeting with me, like everyone has their cameras on, just full
Have
stop, right? I want
100%.
to see a
Absolutely.
human.
Absolutely. Yeah, COVID, oh man, that PTSD for me too, because it was it was very difficult because I was teaching undergrad and grad. I prefer grad, but I was teaching undergrad as well, and it was the cameras, right? And it was 50 students, 30 had on, 20 did not. And Angie, I could not tell you how many times I would sit there and say, I would love for you all to put your cameras on. I can't tell if you're getting, and you'd get a couple, but there were some that just wouldn't do it. And I understood, whatever. I was the first professor to go back into the classroom because we had a chance. I can't remember what it was, the spring, I want to say, of 21. And we had a chance to be hybrid if we wanted to. And I
Yes.
said, "Oh, raise my hand. I'm in." And we went back. I went back. They gave me the big auditorium because there was no other professor going back, it seemed like.
Right.
So I got the big auditorium. Half of them stayed online with Zoom on the big screen. The other half were there, separated out. And I remember feeling, oh my gosh, I could get the responses that I'm looking for again. And it's
Yes.
not just the facial expressions. For me, the in person is huge because of the energy, right? It's the
Right.
energy that I'm feeling. I literally had, quick story, one of my students, she came from Thailand and she was in the US for her MBA and COVID hits. So she's in a dorm on screens the whole time she's here until the last semester that she has my hybrid class. And she came up to me after class I said, this is the first class I've stepped foot in the US, and I'm done in May. I was like, wow. We've kept together ever since, and she's now a professor over there, and she laughs because I taught her how to have a relationship and communication during class and after class with peers and professors, because that's not normal for where she
Right.
went to school. And she said she went back home and now she teaches my way, is what she calls it. She goes, I teach your way. And I'm like, what's my way? And she goes, where you can have a relationship and communication back and forth. So I'm bringing that there and they love it. And it was facial, it was energy, it was allowing people to be a part of it. Yeah, it was, I couldn't go back to that. COVID was hard for an extrovert like myself. My battery level was going low. And
Right.
so getting back with in person, the screens helped a ton, but getting back in person, if not soon, I would have died. I couldn't take it. It was way too much of a drain.
One of my favorite hacks for the meetings, especially I teach a master's class at Emory now, and so some of my guest lectures are remote guest lectures because I'm more interested in getting the best of the best in the industry than just finding lectures in Atlanta to come and teach the class. And this is the hack that I recommend to people in these instances. I still require we have the room camera, but
Right.
if the lecture is remote, I require every student to open up their laptop and turn their camera on.
Love
So the
that.
person who's speaking is not speaking to this big room, but is actually speaking to each individual student.
That's a great one. That's a great. We do that. We do that at work for sure, even when we're in the same room. I like the idea of doing it in the classroom as well. I hadn't thought about that. Most of my guest lectures are in person, but when we do have it as a remote, that's a great call. I do love that. It's so hard to read everyone when you
Yes.
have this masked camera. Like it doesn't do it justice. I agree. It's the individual, and then you also have the names, and you can kind of see. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great hack.
Yeah. Now, the other hack of it is you have to remind your students constantly to not join audio. Otherwise, you will
You hear
have
the
that
speaker
horrible
here.
echoing.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
We're all still getting used to the speed of the mute button. So,
Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about values. So we're talking about leadership style, which I'm getting a little bit, but I want to understand how your personal values, how you built those from a young age and as you were entering into the university, and how they have potentially shaped who you are in business today.
yeah, that's a deep topic for me. About 15 years ago, so I was at Bank of America for 18 years, and about 15 years ago, right in the middle of it, I led their innovation team at B of A. It was a great team. It was 60 of the smartest people I've ever been around, and I realized quickly my leadership style was not normal for most executives at B of A. It just wasn't. It was different. Thought it was just me, but then realized hearing a lot of feedback, especially as my teams grew, 100, 200, like it was like yours is different. And I started realizing that's okay. I'm not changing it, right? I'm not checking it. But the biggest thing I started really not putting in the back or having as these are my values, but I'm not sharing them, was I'm a Christian leader, right? That's just what I do. And I bring that into the classroom. I bring it into the boardroom. I don't check it at the door. So those values of servant leadership, those values of treating everybody the way, you want to be treated, all of these different pieces, it at first, in some cases, you feel vulnerable by being that way. And then I started realizing that's actually my strength. It's
Yes.
actually what makes me who I am. And realizing if that actually made me vulnerable, so be it. If it made me so vulnerable, then I'd have to change the environment, right? So the value piece of how I bring leadership, regardless of what level I was at in my career, really shapes then and all the way to today, where I've had a lot of folks, and this is probably the biggest benefit of it. I've had a lot of folks come back over the years and say, kind of like, thank you for showing the courage to be a leader the way you wanted to be and be successful, even if it wasn't the norm. And for me, that's the biggest compliment I could actually get.
Without a doubt. Okay, so then for devil's advocate piece of it, from your perspective, what do you believe the norm was, and potentially what the norm is in many businesses, and hence the reason we're having this conversation, because we're both engaged in trying to shift and make a new norm that's much better. But from your perspective, what was the norm, and what do you think some of the biggest challenges of that have been?
The biggest norm, the way to categorize me, it was very Machiavellian leadership. It was very punch, kiss, punch, kiss, punch, punch, kiss. It was very inconsistent. It was very in public this, in private this. It was very don't show vulnerability, be a critic. That seemed to be at higher levels as I moved up in the company, and other companies too, not just that big one, other companies too. There was this leadership style where you didn't get too close with your team, that you managed up well, that you didn't show vulnerability. You actually showed a very aggressive, proactive approach, I guess it would be. And I started realizing more and more, I'm like, that's not me, one. Two, I know how to get the most out of working with people and building a relationship of trust. And so I knew by doing that, the trust would be shot. You maybe have some short-term victories, but the reality is you got to look at yourself in the mirror. And the ability to be able to know that I can do it differently and still be successful, it gave me fire. Like, it pumped me up, because it was one of those where I know for a fact the relationships that I'm building, the people that I'm helping, the guidance and motivation and coaching that I'm doing, though different than the norm again, I wasn't going to stop doing it because it looked like that's what people weren't doing. And the crux of what you just asked is so crucial. I went into teaching because I wanted to get in front of students before they saw a different type of leadership, so that I can communicate to them, you could be successful the right way. And that's why I went into teaching. And I tell my students that, like, my whole job, because I've been out there for 30 years, is to be able to make sure you all understand you can be successful, and be successful the right way, and not check your values at the door. And you don't have to, the term that I tell everybody that I hate, it's the term, whenever I hear it, I cringe. It's nothing personal, it's business. That's crap.
Oh my gosh, yes, that is
It's crap.
awful.
Because you're working with people. It's personal.
It's always personal.
We're not just working with robots yet, right? We're working with people. And so when you're working with people, it's personal. The fact that somebody can distinguish the differentiation and say it's nothing personal, I'm not working with you. I don't respect you, right? That mentality of it. And so getting in front of these students, undergrad, grad, at B of A, I also led their rotational program. So I was the executive in residence for all their interns coming in. I'm like, here's another platform. And I would bring this whole, you could be successful the right way. And I would be adamant about it. And I think there were some people that felt relief because of it. Because they're like, oh, that's great, because it's not what I'm seeing over here, or now I'm seeing people that are successful that did it the right way. And I try to bring those kind of guest lectures into my classroom now too. I'm like, look, successful the right way. And the more the students and younger in their career can see that, I think it's a powerful thing. It's a major shift I've seen in the last 10 plus years, probably 5 plus to be even tighter, where we're not dealing with that crap anymore. It's not a necessity to be a leader that way. Like, for so long I saw, well, this is what success metric is. It's upward mobility, and it's responsibility, and it's dollars. I'm not seeing that as much anymore. I'm seeing the change happening through these generations, and now these 20-somethings that I spent a lot of time with in the schools, they get it, and it's going to be different. And I'm really hoping that Machiavellian, that it's nothing personal, it's business, that the inability to have the relationships that you're supposed to have, I pray that not only dies off and goes away, but it never comes back.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we're seeing, as you and I both are professors, we're seeing in this younger generation a generation of people that want to have impact, and their focus
Oh,
is
yes.
on impact. They
Yeah.
want to have their space. They want to feel accepted in a space, and they want to have impact. And we don't have these 30-year careers. I mean, I was lecturing in the spring, and I made the comment about the gold watch, and I'm like, I know none of you know what I'm referring to. And they
Yeah.
and this is a whole bunch of PhD students, right?
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
all, you know, they
Yeah.
also didn't know when I made the reference to New Coke versus Coke and the whole marketing thing that happened there. It was also, but I was prepared for. They're like, what is New Coke? Like, okay, I'm going to
That's
send you the
funny.
case study. You can read it. But it is this generation coming up. It does have this, and I will say for this podcast, the majority of the people who watch this podcast are between the ages of 25 and 35. So
Love
they're
that.
your leaders. Yeah, they're your leaders just coming in to work, and also maybe those ones that are at that pivotal point in their life where they're
Yeah.
getting promoted and they want to learn how to be amazing leaders. You said a word earlier, though, that I want to double click on really quick, and it is the word of
Yeah.
trust.
Yes.
And so I'll use this example. I last Sunday interviewed Raheem Bia, who just got promoted to provost at Georgia Tech,
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
he had not been promoted yet when I interviewed him. So FYI. Anyways, he is an amazing human being. He's a good friend of mine. And one of the things, for example, the minute I found out that I knew he was interviewing for it, but the minute I found out he got the provost job, I had this huge sigh of relief because I know he's a good human being. I trust him. I know it's in good hands. You always know how he's going to react to something because he's
Yes.
consistent and
Yes. Keyword.
reliable. Exactly. Those things are. So can we dig a little bit more into that? Because trust is something that I think, going back to facial expressions and relationships, I
Yeah.
think trust is another item that is so critical, and we don't put enough focus on it when we're working and mentoring future leaders.
Oh, yeah, you're speaking music for sure, and couldn't agree more. I mean, trust to me, and the ability to build trust is everything, and everything from understanding that the consistency word you use is huge too. It's tough to have trust without consistency, right? So when you have the trust in him, it's because of his consistency.
Yes.
A lot of the pieces that I share with folks around trust, and I'll give you two parts of it, especially around the relationship building, right? The ability, a lot of people think, well, I hate the term networking. I hate it. To me, it's relationship building. Networking is
Yes.
a check the box. Relationship building means you actually give a crap. And so relationship building, it starts with building rapport and understanding who they are and they understand who you are. Before you can trust anyone, before you can work with them you have to know yourself, right? The whole go back to, Plato, know thyself. If you don't know who you are, it's difficult to build trust with other people. It's difficult to understand and be able to be vulnerable with who you are so that you can build trust. That's the key
Well, and
word.
maybe like a piece there too is I also oh, I love this, John. This is amazing. I hadn't even thought about this until you just said this. But if you don't know yourself and you can't trust yourself, then
Right.
I can only imagine it would be nearly impossible to trust somebody else if you don't even
Right.
trust yourself.
1,000,000%. And the other thing I'm starting to realize, I'll do some career stuff with people, is they forgot who they were, or they're at a part of their career where they were tossed around and all of a sudden their identity's lost. So they don't even remember who they are. And my whole thing is, you're not going to be able to build trust with other people. You're not going to be able to move in your career because you've either forgot who you are, or you just have never taken the time to understand and be self-aware. Because if you can't have that, to what you just said, there's no way to be able to build trust with someone else, right? Because they won't know who you are, right? And so
Right.
that part to me is huge. And ultimately, you're always developing trust, right? Our relationship now, as we meet, unfortunately for you, what you don't know is, once I meet someone and I build a relationship, you're kind of stuck with me a little bit over time. It's only chapter one. But
Okay,
for
love it.
me, that development of trust always goes, but what is leadership? What we do in life is to influence people, because influence is a positive thing, impact on their life. You can't influence people if you haven't built the trust bond to the level necessary. Impossible. And there are people that, oh, I met this person, so I should be able to influence them. You just skipped every step. And that trust component of it could be lost very quickly. We know that. But for me, when building that up, I'll give you one quick snippet in the new company that we started a year and a half ago, Cabin. I remember one of the first big sales that we had in our first year, and somebody asked me, "What was that? How long was that sales cycle?" And I said about 20 years. That's reality. I met the person 20
Right.
years ago, and I've been building trust, and so only can you have the opportunity to influence them in year one of a new company if you already had the trust basis. So it's not a sales cycle that you and I would think of it. It's years and years of consistency, of vulnerability. And what I tell students all the time, you've got to deposit more than you withdraw. And
Absolutely.
and that's how you build relationships. Just keep depositing. You may never withdraw, and that's okay because your deposits and your connections are good. They're good for them. And at some point, do you withdraw? Maybe it's offered, right? Or maybe it's asked. But yeah, that trust piece, it's a big part for me. It's pretty much everything in my career is based on it. It's the foundation of it because my goal is to be consistent. My goal is to deposit. My goal is to connect people. And if I look back on that, it's a success. It's just chalked up.
Well, also going back to that withdrawal component of it, if you've built that type of relationship over time, when it comes to the moment when you need to withdraw, the other person feels as if they're giving you a gift. They're like in it with you. It's not like you're just asking for a favor. They're super happy because you've built this collaboration that they want to be on your side. And I believe too, sometimes as strong leaders, we can forget to reach out when we do need that help and forget that by not asking sometimes for those withdrawals when it makes sense, that we're actually taking away from what
Yes.
somebody else can do
Yeah.
in our relationship. And I also think going back to something you said a moment ago is that people think, oh, you just met me, you should trust me, I should be able to influence you. And I believe that oftentimes when individuals believe that way, it's because they're relying on their title and their
Correct.
perceived
Correct.
position at a company or in a room or something like that to speak for them. And they forget that the title is not who they are.
Right.
That's not who they are as a human being.
Yeah, 100%. And because the biggest piece in that instance is right, you have an attraction to somebody and how you're meeting them and what, there's a positive energy, all those different things. Yeah, when you have that false idea of I can influence them, now that's coercion, right? When it's a title thing or
Yes.
whatever, there's something very different to that. And and sometimes it works in a very short stint, but it's not real, right? And that's the part where I don't understand why it's hard for me to see why everybody doesn't see that. And the other part you mentioned, I have a hard time. We do the Enneagram at work. I've studied the Enneagram for a long time, and because we're all different. One of the things for me as an Enneagram too, the equation. It's taken me a long time to realize because the equation never worked for me. When somebody says, "John, what can I do for you?" It almost is like, well, that's not how the equation works. I don't need anything. I'm here to help you. And I started realizing to what you said, you're taking away a gift from them. They want
Yes.
to be able to do that. And I'm realizing more and more, probably truly in the last 3 or 4 years, that that's reality. Prior to that, there's a mentality of my growing up in Queens and growing up kind of doing my thing on my own. Like, I don't need it. I don't need any help. I got it, right? I'll go to school. I got it. I pay for it. I got it. I do that. I got it. I don't need, but I started realizing more and more as I am helping others, they want to reciprocate. And if you take that away, that's not good. And so I've been more open to help or whatever, that equation was rough for me for a while.
Yeah, I think that's very common for people that have, for whatever reason, have had to strive a lot independently, maybe with less support than what others have had, that they become very self-dependent. I know for
Right.
me, for my background, I had to depend on myself. I didn't have anyone else. And so I like you,
Yeah.
struggle with that. And then
Yeah.
one day someone opened my eyes to it and said, Angela, you love to serve people. And it just makes my heart explode.
Yes. Yes.
And you realize you're completely taking that
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
away from somebody else. And really, if they have their own healthy boundaries and they say to you, how can I help out, then that is a gift that I believe we need to maximize more as we're collaborating. So
Yeah. Well said.
okay, so speaking about this, I think it also ties into both relationships and culture within your relationship, and then culture within teams and within your classrooms. Because as I say, you have a culture. It just depends on how deliberate you've been. So tell me a little bit more about your philosophy on culture.
Yeah, I love it. It's a timely question too. Starting this company, spinning off and starting this company with six of us, culture was big. I realized I now get the opportunity with these other great leaders to create a culture that I've always wanted to be in. And so creating that is one thing, and I'll talk more about that. Protecting it is the other thing. Like my mind is I protect it like a Swiss guard. It is new people coming in. We're up to 50 something people now. I'm like everybody that comes in, this is the culture, right? We hire for the culture. We stick to it. We talk about it. We all of it. But creating that culture, the biggest pieces of culture that I've always wanted to be around, and now that we've created it, is one of radical candor, right? We've done workshops on it. The only way to grow is to be radically candid, right? And so I'm a big fan of that. So we have a culture that cares heavily, and that's a big part of the relationship building, the trust building, and actual care, so that we can be candid. Move that aside. That's one. The second one is I want everybody to feel like it's psychologically safe, because I've been in environments
Yes.
where it's not. I've been in environments where there's such toxicity, it breaks people. And so for me, that psychological safety was very important to be able to create that for folks. I also know how important it is for individuals to know that they're growing. And so not just, and I hate the term soft skills, but not just hard skills, but human skills. So the ability to make sure that we're helping them be better humans by provide, whether it's communication or whatever the different skill sets are, so that they are progressing along with the hard skills that they learn, through new technologies and all that. But those three things collectively together, right? That's a very powerful environment and culture that we protect. One of our core values that is really the anchor of what we do is give more than you take, right? In my terms, it was deposit more than you withdraw. But that's one of those environments that remains healthy if maintained. And so
Yes.
that's a big part of the environment that I enjoy being in, the environment that of why we've gotten, I would say, 50 of the best, most talented people I've ever seen in my life, with a pipeline behind them that are just as strong. And then when I'm in the classroom, it's the same thing. I try to create an environment, and it was the greatest compliment I heard. This was last Wednesday. I have a grad student. She's close to my age. She has her PhD. She's taught for the last 20 years. She speaks 5 languages. She's from Ghana. And she gave me a compliment at the end of class. Yeah, because I know, like, when I saw her in my class, I'm like, my game has got to be here, because I
Yes.
want to make sure she is getting value.
Her money's worth. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And she came up to me after class and we talked briefly, and she gave me the greatest compliment I have ever received in 14 years of teaching. She said, I have been around, I've seen a bunch. There is nobody that grabs the attention in such a positive light than you that I've ever seen. And I sat there, like my mouth dropped, and I looked at her. I said, that was the sweetest thing and kindest thing I've ever heard. And she goes, it is so true. It is so hard, and you do it authentically. And when she said that last term, I was like, all right, you don't even have to pay me anymore. Like that was that was the payout. And I told her that. I said, that means more, of course, coming from her than anyone else, but it would mean incredible coming from anyone. So that's the culture I try to do in the classroom too, which is be authentic, have the ears, understand the differentiation of a very diversified classroom, have an understanding that it's psychologically safe to bring who you are and be able to still impart as much as I can on what's going on out there so that you understand you can be successful the right way. So that statement she made solidified for us what we're trying to do there. And then at work, it was just people coming in and marking in our latest survey that culture is the reason why they're there. And that to me is probably the biggest reward.
I love that. So a couple of things. If your boss is listening to this, John still needs to get paid. So ignore
That's
what
right.
he
That's
said
right.
when he said he wouldn't get paid
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. No, I still got one more in college, so let's just keep going. Oh yeah.
Let's just keep going there. Okay. So the other thing that I was just thinking about, first off, radical candor. I have made when I was building Florence, I had all my people managers. It was required that they read that book. And I will say, for any of you that read it, it is on a little bit more of the harsh side. A more gentle version is The Making of a Manager. Both of those books, though, are excellent books. And the whole point is that if you're holding back all of these struggles and the things that you need to say, you're not going to be the best team that you possibly can be. And it's really important. Okay, I'm curious. When you, and I'm also teasing, we are going to find out what your new company is, but I just want the listeners to wait to hear. Okay, so before we get into what that is, can you say, when you and your co-founder sat down and you were building the company, how did you decide what values you were going to select and highlight and make the values of your company?
I love it. Yeah, I'll give it two answers really. The first one is because we had spun off from a previous company that the founders had started a decade or so ago. There were a few core values that came with it because they hadn't changed, and we were very secure. We're going to maintain these. Give more than you take and embrace change. There's a couple we added. There's one that we added right away, which was very important to me, very important to them, and very important while we came together, which is cultivate trust and relationships. The heart of the culture that we've created with our teams, with our clients, with the community is cultivating trust and relationships. And the cultivating word is very important because you always go back to it. So we knew that was going to be a big part of the differentiator that made us different. And so that was added. Recently, we looked at it coming into it now 18 months to see what we would change because, organizations morph like as you go. We just added one that we all came together on. And for me, it's probably going to be my favorite I've ever heard. And it's grow boldly. We changed it so many times. Let me make sure I get it straight because the wording is important. Grow boldly, stay grounded. And that is extremely important for us because it centers around the lift as you climb. Because we're growing fast. But we're all going to grow together. We're going to grow boldly because there's this year that 2025 is our year of humble confidence. It is our year of we are confident humbly. Last year was please give us a shot. Right? It is, we will grow humbly. And so this grow boldly, but stay grounded is a very important piece because we remember our roots, we're staying grounded and we're going to lift as we climb. We all boats rise. We've heard that term for so long. That's what that one is. So I'm excited to bring that one out and it's actually being introduced back to the company next week as a new one and the other one's maintained. So as we were coming together, a lot of it was what do we want to continue? What do we want to be different? And now what are we becoming? And now the combination of these has been truly, a lot of people had core values. A lot of companies I've worked for in the past list their core values. These core values are what I think of every day. We measure ourselves on the decisions we make with these core values. We hire with them as well. And so that's a lot. And our clients, right, our partners now and moving forward, they know them because we talk about them and it's not just word, lip service. So it's a great question. And I'm a big fan of making sure there's grounding there and that now it's my job and all of our jobs to protect it.
Well, and I strongly believe that, and you've done this, right? I strongly believe that, first off, values should not just be listed on a wall or on the backdrop of your Zoom room or whatever.
Right.
They should be lived.
Right.
And in order to live them, as your organization changes naturally as you grow, and that is, I love when teams once a year, every 18 months, sit down and evaluate their core values and say, wait, are we really living these? Are these
Right.
the right core values for who we are now as a company? And is there something new that really speaks to the stage we are at this point, which is what you've done? That makes me
Yeah.
so happy to hear.
I love that. Yeah. And that whole what got you here won't get you there, right? It's that got us
Exactly.
here. Now make the adjustments. And I think it gives your company an understanding of we're not just resting on this. Like this is a company, it's alive, right? It's not just set in stone. It's alive. And as we grow, and next year we're going to double. And we'll look at it again, but this is what's going to get us into this, and that's why grow boldly is a big part of going into next year. But we're going to all lift as we climb, which is to me one of the most beautiful things you can do with a company, especially when I'm the oldest in the company, so I'm the adult in the room. It seems like I have some of the smartest people in the world around me, and so helping them with whatever I can while I'm learning from them too is kind of nice.
I remember when I was building my first company and started hiring, and I was the oldest and started hiring all of these young people. I remember the first time I typed in the date of birth of
Oh,
someone who was
yeah.
born after I graduated high school. And I
Yes.
thought, oh, the love of all things. But
Yeah.
it is amazing. I love working, especially with these young students,
Yeah.
because they give me so much energy. I think they keep me young and on my toes and that piece of it. But speaking of that, because you and I both have some things in common in that we're both professors and we both have businesses and run organizations, which are two
Mhm.
very different
Yes.
scenarios, okay, and environments. So my question to you, now let's dig into that conflict resolution piece that we talked about earlier. Walk us through your conflict resolution strategies and how they're similar and different in those two
Great
environments.
call. Yeah, great question. So we'll start on the firm side, right? So conflict resolution there's two parts of it. There's an internal conflict resolution, or now, and we have clients, right? So there's an outward. Starting on inside, I mentioned earlier we look at, and everybody knows their Enneagram number. And as you come into the company, we do the test and everything, and you know your Enneagram number. It is important, and we have it on a wall. We have the big thing on the wall, and everybody knows what number everybody is. And it came in really handy a couple of times already because we had conflict with a couple of folks, and I won't go into all the details, but quickly my brain went to who they are. Let's understand how their worldview is on this. And when you first look at it, you're like, this person doesn't make sense why that bothers that person. And this person I'm siding with, right? It was this quick thing. But when you dug deep and you looked at who they were in the Enneagram and you really research this certain scenario, how they would each react, it nailed it. This person as an Enneagram 1 would react this way, and this person as an Enneagram 6 react this way. That's exactly why they had the conflict. And it was neither one of them were wrong. And and really we started, how do we handle internal conflict, by first understanding the differentiation between the people, where they're coming from, not just the topic or the conflict itself, but how they would view the conflict, or
Exactly.
where their mind goes. Because if you can understand that, the conflict is just, it's the second piece of it. It's not the most important one. So we do that a lot internally. We haven't had a ton of conflict to be able to continue to flex the muscles and get better and better. But that's the first one. The second one brings back the radical candor and be able to make sure that that's an open dialogue. I would say the third piece for conflict resolution, especially internally, has a lot to do with just being grounded on what's a success coming out of this conflict? Like, what are we both trying to be able to get done? If we're both grounded there, then the negotiated output is going to be better, right? So move that aside. The conflict resolution with clients, we are very clear. There's multiple ways you can focus on it. We focus on our talent first. If we take care of our people and protect our people, they will take care of the clients, and then the clients will take care of the financials for themselves. So we start there. We don't start on the numbers. We don't start the client's always right. No, our talent that's where we're starting. And so with any of the conflict we're having, whether it's a client having a clash or not feeling like they were getting what they needed or whatever it was, we start with our talent, and we understand that we're protecting them. We're backing them up. We want them to be bold. We want them to be confident. We want them to feel like they can have a high level of self-efficacy and not question themselves and all of that. So starting with them is huge. Then understanding the other side of it and come to a negotiated win. But our clients are realizing we're gonna protect ours. And for the betterment, we've turned away clients, right? Because it wasn't the right culture fit for our talent to be a part of. I'm not gonna put people in a situation where they're miserable, because we're trying to create an environment of a great place to be for a third of your life, right? So that part of it is very important for us. And I think, and I've seen multiple of these happen, where if we start there, we support them, we back them, and then figure out the best win-win negotiated space, we always end up better. And it may not mean financially better in some cases, but it means taking care of the team. Everybody sees that. You may be dealing with one or two people, but 48 see it. And I think it gives people that confidence, that boost, the trust that we talked about earlier, where it's just not using words that they've got. We just saw an action through conflict that they support. And that's probably the loudest thing that we can do. So it's two separate, but that's just a couple of pieces for the conflict, which you got to get good at it, because it's going to happen. It's not just roses, right? Things occur. But I think starting with the humans, that's probably the biggest piece we've been able to do, which is good.
Well, and also to challenge that comment about, you said we'll always be better, maybe not financially. I think we often forget the subsequent financial positive impact of
Great
those
call.
hard decisions.
Yeah.
And later we are better financially,
Yeah.
because those team members
Yeah.
stay longer. They give more of these intangible things, right?
Oh yeah. Now, well said. Well said. In the long run, you're absolutely right, and it creates an environment of trust. I mean, our turnover is, I mean, we keep, and it's important. As I mentioned earlier, it is the most talented people in the industry. We have them. We want to be a destination site for that. So I don't want the back door open, and the
No,
ability to do
exactly.
these, keep that back door closed. So to your point, like financially, ultimately, it's better. And it starts at the top. It's all of us. And so yeah, I love being around that, because I've been around where that wasn't the case, and that's not fun.
And it
Like I
sucks.
said,
Yeah.
and it sucks. It's again, it's a third of your life, man. You're sleeping, you're working, and you're here. And so I want people to be proud of where they're working. I mean, and feel comfortable where they're working, and know that they've got support. I think people act more confidently and work so much harder. Now, you also have to be careful not to have them drown, because they will swim hard for you by
Exactly.
doing that. But
Yes.
it's being very cognizant of that. We don't want heroes. We want to make sure that you understand, give more than you take, but not at the detriment of. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And we've talked about firing clients on this podcast multiple times. Had an amazing interview with Ann Chow, and she wrote the book Lead Bigger. It's a great book. She's a dear friend of mine. And we talked about some firing of some clients. And I think that one of the things that for companies and people who are stuck in the mentality of the customer is always right, and they allow the customer to make their team members miserable, to force poor decisions that then have an impact on other customers, and all of these consequences of that type of one-sided black and white statement is that
Right.
they don't understand that by hiring the right people, building the best culture, helping your team members grow and be their best, and then supporting and advocating for them. If you have to say no to a customer, then you're also allowing those people. You talked about psychological safety. That is another piece of psychological safety because they see that you see them and you believe in them.
Yeah, and it goes a long way. I mean, it goes a long way for them, those 50. Our next 50 are just as important. And so if
Exactly.
those 50 feel that, they're going to attract the next 50. I mean, if they don't feel it, that next 50 is not coming at the level in which they were, what you need them. And I agree. I mean, that's people see it. That's the part that I'll share with leaders all the time. I'm like, people are watching. People are watching leaders, people are watching peers, people are watching behavior, and they don't forget. And people remember how you make them feel, and people remember all those things. I think a lot of times we get so inside of our own heads, we don't understand how much is being seen and how much is being either appreciated or the opposite, right? It's one of those where you're going to get one of these two. A lot of times it's not neutral of a feeling of a
Right.
response, right? So yeah, I agree. And just as important to make them feel that way so that when we do get the next 50, which the majority of them are going to come from referrals of these
Yes.
people, that
Or
that
maybe
next
even from customers.
oh, and that happens a ton. I mean, I joke. There's a few of us that I feel like we're job placing more than I'm doing anything else. I'm just connecting this person here and bringing him here, and
Yes.
but just because it helps all of them, and but you never know, and that happens constantly. And so that's the part you don't know what seeds are being planted, and so plant good ones, right? Because they can go a lot further than you could ever imagine. So this is part of it.
And that ties back to what we spoke about earlier was getting to know yourself as a human being as well, because I have part of my coaching is I do personal branding with people, and oftentimes when I first start working with them, they want me to come up with this brand for them, and I say no,
Right.
no, no, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to ask a lot of questions because we need to find out who you are as a human being, because if your
Yes.
brand is not authentic, then
Right.
it's nothing. It's just a waste. No one's going to trust you. You're not going to build relationships, all of those things around it. So it is really ties back to those skills of getting to know yourself first and then living your authentic self. So speaking about that though, when we go back to that comment about it's not business, it's personal. Oftentimes I hear that when somebody has to lay people off or
Right.
they have to make an unpopular decision. So can you walk us through a moment where you had to make an unpopular decision? And I know for a fact you did not say it's not it's not personal, it's business. Walk us through what happened and how you handled it.
June 16th, 2013. Yep, June 16, 2013. Remember the day, worst day of my career. So I had to make I had to do the impossible task. I felt at that point I had to lay off. I think it was 16 people on my team that I grew up to 50 people, and there were 16 I had to let go, and it was nothing about effort or skill set or any of that. It was a numbers game. It was a political game. It was a centralized, decentralized, that kind of cycle that we go through. And I sat in this room, and one by one, I had to have these individuals come in that room and have that conversation of a layoff. And I had laid off folks before, unfortunately, and I've had since then, unfortunately. But in those moments, my biggest thing was be human. Just be human. Like don't sugarcoat, don't do it. Just be human and understand. I take a big responsibility. Who was on my team, whether it was 5 or 2,000, these are people's lives, families that you're responsible for, and
Exactly.
having, and so and having those conversations, I didn't take that lightly. And I didn't do everything's going to be. I didn't. You just be human and be succinct, be there. And it was terrible. I mean, it was one after the other. My goal the day after was to how do I connect all of them into what their next chapter is and really play a
Yes.
help to do it. And they all worked out just fine, which is beautiful. Doesn't happen all like that all the time. But I would say that's one of those to where I I had seen it done so many different ways. I've had it done to me very inhuman, right?
Yeah.
To where I was going to be human, I was going to be direct. And to this day, matter of fact, I just talked to one of the probably the smartest people I've ever known. I talked to her probably 2 weeks ago about potentially coming to the company that we're with now. And she was one of them. And she went on, she's gone on to do such amazing things. But she's like, she goes, I learned more in that conversation on how to treat someone in a very tough situation than I've ever done anywhere else. And you get to the end of the day, I thought I was terrible. I'm like, that was terrible. I could have done better. And she was like, no, that really changed how I view and handle a conflict or a very difficult decision. And so anyway, it made me feel good. My relationship with every one of them, I still have it. And that was, again, 12 years ago. But like I said, you're stuck with me. Unfortunately, people get stuck. And so I will reach out. They're all doing great, but it's one of those situations, especially when it's out of your control and it's not your decision and you have to be able to follow through with that. Very difficult to be able to do. So, I mean, that's probably one example. And there are many others where you had to make the call, but you make no excuses, but you be human while you're doing it and understand that somebody on the other side of the phone, the screen, the table, they're going through a ton with it, right? Just being authentic, being human, having the ear open, all of those things, and you hope you do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had to do that. I've had to lay off both when it was my decision and when it was not my decision. And quite frankly, they're both unique. I wouldn't say to me one felt harder or easier than the other. I think they just really harness different emotions on my side.
Yes.
And I, like you, actually, several of them that I've laid off in the past listen to this podcast and they'll make comments on different things. And I love that because there's this mutual trust.
Yes.
And they know that it wasn't out of spite.
Correct.
It was out of having to make the best decision at the moment. And you can still do that in a way that sets everyone up to ultimately be successful in the long run, which more people need to figure out how to do.
Completely. The trust word's key. I mean, if I didn't have that trusted relationship with folks, how do you do that the right way? How do you handle it the right way? And I've heard leaders that I don't really appreciate their style, but it's, well, you can't be friends with people that work for you. And I sit there for a bit. I'm like,
that's insane.
It's insane. You've got to build a relationship. You're trying to, leadership is influence. No wonder you can't influence them. You don't have a relationship with them. It's a hierarchical relationship. So when this comes down, it doesn't make sense to me. So I've never bought into that. And it's those situations right there where you would say, how could you do that without a relationship? Or, when you're making decisions, hard decisions, great decisions, promotion, all these different things, people have got to know you have their best interest. And they've also have to know that you're vulnerable too, to build that trust, right? And so in those scenarios, I swear, as I was going through that, I think they were doing therapy back to me. John, it's good. It's okay. I'm sitting there like, I'm trying to make you, you're trying to make me feel good. Because that's a mutual trust that you can influence each other, right? And so,
Yes.
I agree with you 100%. And hopefully more and more and more of that sinks in on people because the other way is pretty lonely.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's really awful. Okay, so because I've been teasing the audience, what is Cabin?
Yeah.
What do you do, and what inspired you to jump into it?
Cabin. So Cabin is a digital consultancy. So we do custom software design, custom build. We have a massively talented innovation team that's human-centered design. So we design all this digital and build. It is a mighty team. It is here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've got a spinoff from a company called Skookum that started more than a decade ago. And we have now, at first it was like, what is Skookum 2.0 going to be? Well, it's Cabin, and Cabin is different. It's unique. And it's the clients that we have picked up as partners in the first year and a half of work. I'm not going to name them all. They are players, and I couldn't be happier. We've also done some great mission work, mission projects with smaller startups, helping with women with menopause and healthcare. We're doing work in financial services, in operations, in what's the new one? Retail, manufacturing, a lot of different industries. So extremely talented people. 40 are here in Charlotte. The rest are remote throughout other parts of the U.S. We're small but mighty, and we compete with the big boys and girls all day long, which is kind of fun. And it really has become this community of talent here where the biggest piece I would say, and I'll end it with this part of Cabin, is we teach while we do it. And that's very important to me. I've seen on the client side when consultants and folks come in, those that can leave you better off and teach you
Yes.
always deliver more partnership. So for us, because a lot of our clients have been relationships of ours through the years, our whole job besides doing and helping them is also teaching and making their teams even better. And so
Yes.
that's what we do. So I'm very I have a ton of pride in this company. I wear a lot of swag, like we do a lot of different swag and shirts, and we do community events. We had a casino night a few weeks ago for our clients, and everybody was playing with tables, and it was fun. So it is my favorite place I've ever worked ever, and I worked for the Yankees. So this is above that, which gives you a sense. But this is
Can I interject? You get to work at Cabin and you get to watch the Yankees,
and I
but
get
you
to
didn't get
watch
to
the
watch the.
Yankees.
There you
No,
go.
not anymore. Baseball season's over for me right now, but we'll be back. But yeah, it's a big part. I've got a sign right behind my head, Angie, at work in my office, and it says, it's a baseballism sign. It said, live life like a 3-1 count. And so if you know baseball, a 3-1 count, 3 balls, 1 strike, you take a massive cut if it's in the strike. You give it all you got. And if you miss, who cares? You got another strike. So
Yeah,
that baseballism of live life like a 3-1 count, it just rings in my head.
that's amazing. Okay, are you ready to do some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so the first one, what does leaving a legacy mean to you?
Uh, f- that's become clearer for me in the last couple of years more than anything. To me, leaving a legacy is a daily purpose. It's it's positively impacting everybody that comes across my path. And to me, I'm realizing more and more the legacy is positively impacting them so that they can positively impact others. And if I feel like that is having a domino effect and a true effect on people's lives, legacy hit. And that includes my family, not just workers or students. But I'm realizing more and more a legacy doesn't have to be so grandiose. And it can be an avalanche that starts with something real small. And so for me, having that ability to really think through every day, whoever comes across my path, and I have a lot of platforms to be able to interact with, but whoever comes across that, how do I positively impact them so that I leave them off better? And who knows where it goes from there. So for me, if that works, I'm pumped. I feel like it's a purpose driven component of it.
Amazing. Okay, what is a book or resource that you think every leader, good leader, should read or listen to?
Oh, there are so many different ones.
I
I
know,
would
that's so hard
say
to pick.
besides your podcast, I would say
Yes,
I
well
would say
done.
well done. I would say one of the books I've really enjoyed, and I've gone back to it a couple of times, is Tony Dungy's book, Uncommon. I don't know if you've ever read that book by Tony
Oh,
Dungy,
yes, it is so
NFL
good.
coach.
Yes.
Just an amazing way of breaking down a lot of very complex things to have an impact and be uncommon. And I like that term because who wants to be common? Right? Who wants to be just fine? Like we go through this one time. This isn't a dress rehearsal. And so for me, it's kind of how do you be uncommon? And I love that. I think that's one of those books that people should read. I like Adam Grant a lot too. I like a lot of his
Same.
stuff. Um, I love the book Relational Intelligence. I think that book has been a big part of what I've seen as how you identify the importance of it. So there's a bunch, but I would probably start with those.
Amazing. Okay, I love that. Okay, what is one leadership trait you admire most in others?
And this is one that it's really changed over the years. The one I'm admiring the most right now are leaders that know how to protect their time.
Oh, dig
We
in
give
more
it
to that.
away. We give it away like it's free. And there's a concept that I've been writing about and talking about, and I'm seeing more and more of the leaders that differentiate themselves. And I call it your FQ. So it's not your EQ or IQ, it's your FQ, it's your filter quality, the ability to protect your time, the ability to know all these events are going to happen. Should you respond at all? Does it deserve your energy? How do you, the great leaders that I'm looking at know how to protect their time, because people are going to treat your time the way you protect it.
Yes.
And great leaders I'm seeing more and more are not getting, we're in an attention economy, right? It's a distraction. It's a lot of things, a lot coming at us. No communication streams have gone away. We've just added to them, right? That's probably the trait where I've seen the most impactful leaders know how to protect their time, and they understand that only an individual can protect their time. People can't take it unless you give it to them, and we do it so often. So I would say that's probably the one that I'm seeing now, especially in this, everything is hitting for your attention, and it's such a natural human response to feel like you have to respond to it all, but it's leaving us time not to focus on the things that we actually have control over the outcome. So great leaders I'm seeing, if they can protect their time, I'm seeing that as a trait that ever moving forward has got to get better and better.
You know, one of my favorite longtime books is the book Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. And in Boundaries, they make this statement that says, no is a complete sentence. And I love
Period.
that because it is. And everything we say yes to means we're saying no to something else. So we have to choose those yeses wisely. And I know I had something come up this past week. I was at a cocktail hour with women in leadership, and someone came up to me. And in the midst of the conversation, I know she kind of needed some mentoring from me, but I don't have any more space in my day-to-day right now to do that. So what I said was, I said, okay, you can email me. I don't have any time on my calendar, but I'll send you a couple of links that can steer you in the right direction. And the moment, and then after I said that, I said, you know what? I need to tell more and more people I do not have any time on my calendar for that, because it is the truth.
I need to echo that in my head.
Right? Yes. Yes, yes. So there you go. I just did it once this week. It went over really well, John. So
It's hard.
steal it.
I admire
Yeah.
that. I need to do that. It's hard for me the same way, because it's like I want to help. I want to be that person that I didn't have, like, to be able to go
Yes.
to, and so I am here. Yeah, I need to copy that, because that I need to protect my time with that, even though I'm feeling selfish when I do it, but it is important because I can't stretch that thin. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other thing I'm trying to work more on as well is being more structured about when I respond to emails and not constantly be on responding to emails, and realizing this is not a 911 emergency to respond to this. So I can put it into my bucket of time that I'm allocating for that. And I think that discipline, it's hard, but it's something I'm personally working on myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. I've gotten a lot better at that. My responses, people know now, if I don't respond, they'll kid around, be like, "Oh, you FQ'd me," like, but maybe, right? I just, there's a term, and we use the term just because it helps. Everybody knows what it means. Just two letters. If we're like, got to get your FQ up, because it's a
Right.
daily thing. It could be good today,
Yes.
bad tomorrow. But that's a good one. And I've had people, John, where's your FQ? You're like, you're stretching too thin, or you can't say no to some other help. So yeah, I got to get my FQ up on that too. So that's a good reminder.
Yeah, there you go. I have in my signature line of my email, and actually, if you notice, Katie, the executive producer, also has something very similar in hers. And mine says, I've responded to this in a time that works with my work life balance. Please respond in the same for yours.
Well, I
Yeah, we
love that.
both.
You set
Yeah,
the
and we
tone. I
mean
love
it.
that.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
huge. Yeah, that's good. That consistency and a proactive tone. I like that a lot. Actually, I didn't see that. That's my miss. I should have saw that.
Now you will.
I won't miss it. I will not miss that.
If you could have dinner with any leader, past or present, who would it be and why?
I'd go back to that first guy that hired me. I mean, I would. He's passed. I would love to. I'd love to sit down with him and be able to say, "Hey, man, I did the best I can. Like this is kind of where I'm at, and you laid a foundation." I'd love to have that conversation because I would have a lot more of a mature conversation now with him because it was so much he was giving and I just could only receive a little bit because I didn't understand everything. But I'd love to sit down. Besides from the fact of that, I'd love to be able to give him a. He didn't have any sons, and so he didn't have any children, and so for him it was like I don't know, giving him a little bit of, hey, look what I've been able to do. Thank you, kind of
Yes.
mentality. I think that would be pretty powerful.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about that with different guests on the podcast and trying to encourage the audience. If someone has had a positive impact in your
Yes,
life, please tell them because
tell
isn't
them.
that the greatest gift when someone tells you that? And it's so easy to do.
It's why you do it. I had lunch yesterday. One of my first bosses, he was a Marine commander. He had just come back from Iraq in '03 and was my leader. Still to this day, one of the greatest leaders I've ever been under. Got to have lunch with him yesterday with his new wife. He's moving to Charlotte. My wife got to spend time with him as well. And I've told him, and I told him at lunch yesterday, how much of an impact he had on me. He taught me so much, but the one piece that still sits in my head is silence is a form of communication, and he did it better than anyone. It was just if it was better than words, then you stayed silent. Like and so there were so many of those that he taught me. I shared it with him yesterday. He kind of he's your typical Marine, right? He blushed on it, but you're right. It's a gift that you get back from people because you never know who you impact. You never know, and so letting them know when they had a positive impact on you 100%. I push that for everyone to make sure that those comments are made.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so now finish this sentence. A true leader always.
I would say a true leader always makes you feel better when you leave them. A true leader, that whole term of, I think it was Maya Angelou, people will forget what you say, but they won't forget how you
Yes.
feel. I think a true leader makes you feel better when you're with them and when you leave, you feel better. I think that a true leader has to have that positive relational type energy to impart. Like I don't know how great of a leader you can be if you leave neutral or negative. So I would
Yes,
say a true leader
yes.
has got to impart that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that tie along those lines, a true leader, when you walk away from a true leader, you feel heard and seen.
I love that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's powerful.
Okay, I love motivational quotes. So, hence, every single episode ends with the guest
Yeah.
sharing their favorite. And I'll tell you a teaser.
Yeah.
Next year, I believe we're kicking it off next year. Right now, I post out Monday motivationals, which are motivational quotes and some
Oh, I
thoughts
love
around
that.
it.
Love that.
Next year, we hope to do them utilizing our guests'
Oh, that's
motivational
great.
quotes and showcasing that. So you'll see this
Oh, that's
again in the
very cool.
future. But what is your favorite motivational quote?
There's probably a couple. There's one that's hitting home a lot more now than it was, but the one that's always been in my mind, and this is coming from early on, and I don't remember where I'd heard it. It comes. I don't remember who told me, but it comes from Liz Wiseman. But it's confidence will earn your seat at the table, but humility will keep you invited to come back. Right. So confidence is important to get there, but without humility, you're not going to be invited back. So to me, that's where I go into that humble confidence. That I think of that daily. Be confident, but be humble, right? And so that's always stayed with me. The one that's really hitting more and more for me in the last couple of years is this kind of Mark Twain. And I remember reading it a long time ago, but it didn't hit. But in the last couple of years, it's hit more. And it's the two most important days in your life is the day you were born and the day you find out why. And for me, the last couple of years, I feel like I've found out why. And so that's amazing to me. And so that one hits home pretty good. And the one that I always tell people all the time is from my pops. He was a very simple guy, man. But when he said certain things, it was interesting. He said, beat yesterday, man. Just beat yesterday. Beat yesterday. Like, break it down and just beat yesterday. If you had a bad day, beat yesterday. If you had a good day yesterday, beat yesterday. And to me, that allows you to refresh. And I always thought that was a pretty powerful statement. It was simple, but it was kind of like, life's going to hit, right? Beat yesterday, and just, that's it. It's all you, because that's all you can control is today. So that one I've always loved.
No, I love that. I've never heard that before. I'm familiar with the mentality of it,
Yeah.
but I really love succinct phrases. When I used to race Ironman races, I used to write on all my race bags motivational quotes. I used to write on my little protein things during the bike, little motivate, and they need to be short and concise, but have something of depth there. And the thing I love about Beat Yesterday is what you just said. It's a refresh. Is that every day is absolutely not going to be a stellar day, and sometimes we beat ourselves up about yesterday, and instead of beating ourselves up about yesterday, just do a little bit better today.
Yeah. It gives you enough to be like, I can do that. You may be having the hardest thing. I can beat yesterday, and knowing, if it was, and even if it was a great day, that was the other part too. Beat it, and like go more, right? So I always liked that. It was just one of those that always stuck in my head as, I can do that. That's in my control. So
love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that the audience is going to love it. I'm grateful.
No, this has been great. I appreciate the invite. Your questions are great. Your smiling, everything's contagious. So this has been a great conversation. Hopefully it's the content that somebody can take one or two things from, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. So thank you.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There, you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Follow us on all social media channels shown on the screen and displayed in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.